So the actual price is somewhere between what the Minister of State Shri Subhash Bhamre ने जो Parliament में बोला था 670 crores per unit, and what the Congress is claiming is the extraordinary price. Now the thing is, what Shri Subhash Bhamre ji said was it was 670 crores. Now that is not entirely correct. It's the per unit price, and in that it is accurate. But when you are buying a plane like this, you're not just buying the plane, you're buying a whole infrastructure with it. Usme training aata hai, there is weapons, there is infrastructure, there is maintenance and logistics and all of that, and you buy it as a package. And so the costing there is somewhere in between. Now it is what are all the additional services that you're buying that are classified. So clearly there's no issue in disclosing the per unit cost price, which has been done and is on the record. There is a lot of issue disclosing what the additional pricing is, because that is where the differential, the profit for the manufacturer is made. And that is what is being withheld right now. And that's not such a bad thing, because your secrecy clause with France is very clear. You have to protect their commercial interests, they protect your security interests. So for example, if you hurt their commercial interests by disclosing prices on this, they will hurt your security interests by doing, say, what the Americans do, which is sell the same plane to both Israel and Saudi Arabia and Iraq, all of whom are at each other's throats, or sell India the same plane that they've sold to Pakistan. You don't want that, there is a price to pay. And that is the secret price that you're talking about. The other price component here is the fact that the Rafale was the only nuclear plane in the contest. Nuclear capable plane, as well as the only one that the supplier country would authorize nuclear carriage in. Because if you look at the other planes, the Americans are very strict. They will not allow us to carry nuclear weapons on their plane. The Germans and the Brits who run the Eurofighter consortium are also very clear about NPT restrictions. And the Swedes, of course, we very well know what their position on the NPT is. So out of all these planes, you had only one plane in the running, which was the Rafale, which would have given you that nuclear edge. And that is the cumulative price that you've paid for this, much less than what the Congress is claiming. So, I found this charge of cronyism to be a very funny charge, because it seems to me that you want to hurl a charge of corruption, but you have no evidence prima facie or otherwise to prove corruption, and so you fall back on cronyism. Now I want to know, show me one section in the IPC that either defines cronyism or penalizes it. I want to know what is the cronyism that is being alleged here. Now you look at the three, the initial participants in the MMRCA contest. Lockheed Martin, which presented the F-16, had teamed up with Tata Motors, with Tata Industries. Saab is now teamed up with the Adanis. And at that time, Dassault had already teamed up with Reliance Defense, which at that time was under Mukesh Ambani. Now, obviously, when you give somebody a contract, you are asked not to micromanage the industrial offsets. Now, in the case of every time the government tries to micromanage the offsets, you then attack it for micromanaging industrial partnerships. When they decide not to micromanage it, then it becomes cronyism for you. Now, this is a question you need to ask Dassault why it was done. And the second thing we need to understand is, what is Anil Ambani Reliance Defense? It's basically the old Pipavav shipyard, which was taken over by Anil Ambani and turned into a Reliance enterprise. So they clearly have a very long history of manufacturing industrial goods, defense industrial goods. And the second issue here is that they also, the offsets that we're talking about is not aircraft. When you were negotiating for 126 aircraft, it made economic sense to build those aircraft out here. For 36, it does not make economic sense to build those aircraft out here. The offsets that have been negotiated are technology offsets and integrating Indian companies into the global supply chain. Now, you can ask a valid question saying, what is Reliance Industries experience in these particular technical products? Here's the thing, it is not the government that is going going to audit that process except in the performance audit of what is delivered at the end. Ultimately, Dassault has undertaken to integrate all these companies into their global supply chains. And that is what is important, that the systems integrator, the original equipment manufacturer, is satisfied with the quality of what is given to it, and if all of these things are commercially viable to be sold in the market later. Again, if it isn't, Dassault pays the price for it. The Indian government does not pay the price for it. Where Nirmala Sitharaman comes into the picture is that after Shri Subhash Bhamre had disclosed the per unit flyaway price in Parliament, the defense minister said, you know what, I have nothing to hide, I am going to disclose the price completely to Parliament. And then of course she went back on it, citing the secrecy clause. Now, is that a mistake? Absolutely it is. She misspoke in the heat of the moment. She probably came out and said, you know what, I have nothing to hide, therefore I'm going to tell you. And when she goes back, obviously, when the file goes up, the concerned bureaucrat says, hey, there's a secrecy clause, and under the secrecy clause, the price is also included in it. You can't disclose it. Now, for you to draw a conclusion that there has been corruption or cronyism just based on that is too far a stretch. You can't have a single point of reference for this. It's a much more complicated thing, because if there has been corruption, the same price that you're crying about has already been disclosed, or at least we have a government commitment, will be disclosed to the CAG, and it can be disclosed in a confidential briefing to whoever in the opposition wants to listen to. The point is, you can't disclose it to the parliamentary committee, standing committee on defense, because all their work is public. In fact, it used to be a treasure trove for us. Anytime we wanted classified information, which the Ministry of Defense won't release to us, we used to go through parliamentary standing committee reports, and it was a treasure trove of getting stuff. So I'm not seeing how did Nirmala Sitharaman misspeak. Yes, I think she should just come out and say, you know what, I made a mistake, and that's about it. But a mistake is not the same as corruption, because all the circumstantial evidence around it does not point to any kind of scam.